Okay.
All you.
Okay. I would like to call to order the ILL Tech Group meeting via Zoom for Thursday, February 24th, 2022, starting at 9:32 a.m. Good morning. I'd like to thank everyone in advance for their contributions this morning. And while the meeting will not be long, it does give us an opportunity to connect with each other. Are there any additions to the minutes that were put together?
I don't have an addition, but if you don't mind, I will just take this opportunity to enter in the link to the sign-in sheet in chat. So at any point, go ahead and open that link up. You should be able to put your name next to your library. If you have any issues, let me know. I will enter your name for you.
Thank you. It was on clearance, but I had to have it. It's the work, like I came on
Okay,
conference.
if there are no additions to this morning's agenda, do I have an approval, a motion for an approval of the minutes for August 26th, 2021 as
They
written?
have like 6 different categories.
I'll move to approve. Tony? Park Ridge?
Tony from Park Ridge has given us a first motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a
Paula.
second, and that is Paula.
Paulette Zion.
Thank you. Well, let me start with the officers' report. I'm Jeannie from Lake Forest, and I'm your chairperson. Stephanie will not be with us this morning, and Mary Ellen is taking notes. Thank you for the notes that you wrote up for the last meeting. Miyako is going to be sharing the Share Illinois update, the Rails Transit Labels update, and the web report update. And then Karen Bolton from Fremont is going to be doing the CCS Illanet report. I will be giving you an update on the summary for the annual OCLC report. And then Jackie from Lake Villa is going to be having an open discussion for handling long overdue items from OCLC libraries. So given that, I'm going to turn it over to Miyako.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Apologies. Okay, hopefully you can see my slides. I have just a few just to work in some screenshots for these updates. So the first update is on Share Illinois. If you've been to a meeting recently, you probably have heard updates on this. For those who have not, just a quick background. So Share Illinois was a program supported by Rails that allowed libraries to place holds directly in other libraries' catalogs. For example, the ILL coordinator at Naperville could log into a designated online catalog and place a request, right? However, Rails discontinued Share last October, and CCS has been slowly sunsetting that service since then. So the first thing we did to sunset the service, we disabled the ability to place holds in the ILL for Cooperative Computer Services Power Pack, which is the pack that the Share libraries used. We disabled the ability to place holds at the end of December of last year. So from that point forward, no new holds were able to be placed. We decided to temporarily keep the ability to log in and view your account active so that Share libraries can have a little bit of time to go in and see what items they had checked out as they transitioned away from Share procedures. Now that we're kind of getting a couple months past the holds point, we are going to take that final step on March 1st. And we'll be disabling the ability to log in to the pack. So at that point, any former Share libraries will not be able to log in and view their accounts. We had a good comment here about making sure everyone is muted so there's no background information. Let me see if I can do that real fast. Okay, thanks. So like I said, as of next Tuesday, we will be disabling the ability to log into the ILL for Cooperative Computer Services PAC page. So before, so that, very short update for Share. Are there any questions or comments from anyone? Or I'd be interested to know if you've heard anything from Share Libraries.
Lake Forest has been receiving from Naperville emails, and they've been placing their holds that way.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Round Lake also has been getting direct requests from Naperville. And I had a question about that, if anybody knows the answer. Those direct requests, are they supposed to be kept for a certain length of time as a record, or can we just not worry about that? Does anybody know that? I mean, I haven't seen a direct request since, oh my gosh, long time.
At Wilmette, we've been getting direct requests from Naperville as well.
Yeah.
I just recently got one from out of state as well. We are keeping the paperwork, the ALA requests that they were sent to us. We keep it in when it's currently in use, and then we move it on to our completed file when we're done with it.
Let me just open the chat here. Indian Trails keeps the request until the item is returned. It makes, yeah, I know Naperville is not an OCLC member, so it makes sense that they are the ones that you see the most direct requests from. Well, if you do have any other questions on Share, do let me know. The next update I had, again, this might be old news for you. I know we talked about this at the last CERC meeting. So Rails did a small update a little bit ago to their transit slips. They added some text to the bottom of the slip saying circle one and then either hold or return. So per Rails delivery, this field is optional. It's meant to be used by the shipping library to kind of help the receiving library sort items when they arrive at the destination. So the idea is that you circle hold if the item is traveling to fulfill a hold, or you circle return if the item is traveling to be returned to its owning library. I know Rails said they were planning on sending out communication on this. I may have missed it, in which case I apologize, but if anything does come my way, I will push it out to the rest of the group too. And then I'm also curious here if anyone has seen transit slips circulate with these fields filled out yet. I'm seeing a lot of head shakes no. Okay, I guess it doesn't surprise me, but if anyone does come across these fields filled out, I am curious to see if it helps you with your sorting.
Mieko.
Yeah.
This is Kim from Wilmette. We have seen a couple of them come through. No, because sometimes they go back to the home library if the hold has been canceled in transit, or it goes back to another library because a hold was placed. So the only thing we look for is if y'all put a note on it that says attention to someone.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, Indian Trails has seen just a few. Yeah, same with everyone. Just a few trickle in, not too many filled out. So we'll see what happens with that field. And then the final thing I just want to kind of mention, this update is going to be shorter than anticipated because I know we're going to do some more like deep diving into reports in ILLiNet in the new business discussion. So I just very quickly want to mention a few things related to the Ellinet report. So the Ellinet survey does ask for data from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. So you can access the web report that covers that period by clicking into the report archive and then looking for the appropriate coverage dates. It will just be the second column here, the dates within the parentheses. Or email me, I'm happy to download and send it to you. The one other thing I just wanted to mention, that there has been a related update to the monthly CERC department stats. So we had a request to report some Ellinet numbers on a monthly basis. And those numbers have been added to the monthly CERC department stats report. So they reflect the coverage dates of the report. So the report that ran February 1st covers January 2022. Those Ellinet stats reported there cover January 1st to January 31st. So these numbers, it's just like a small selection of the data that appears in the annual Ellinet. These report the number of requests and the number of intra-CCS loans sent to your library, and the number of items that your library lent out on intra-CCS loan. So just a heads up that the numbers are there in the monthly CERC department stats report. We were trying to determine if this is like the best place for it, or if it works better in a different report. So over the next couple months, like if you're looking for this information as you work through the reports, if you find you have suggestions, please let us know. And with that, I am all set with my updates. And Jeannie, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Mako. Next, we have Karen Bolton with the CCS Ellinet Net Report. She's going to be covering that. She's from Fremont.
Well, yeah, I'm not really covering it. I just have questions about it.
Thank
It's
you.
like-
We'll take those questions.
Yeah,
Yes,
I thank you for sending in some like specific questions.
Mhm.
If you don't mind, Karen, I put together a few slides. I'm going to give you the info that I have on these reports. I'm hoping that will clear up some of the questions, and then whatever it doesn't clear up, I will take your questions and find answers for you.
Oh, okay,
Perfect.
great.
Okay.
You know, and just before you get started,
Yeah.
to you know, like the first question that they have, like the items requested by your library, I know that it said that there's no way to tell that. You know, and you're supposed to be using 2-4 or whatever, you know, use the same answer as 2-4. But wouldn't you, for that one, I mean, are you going to be covering that? Like, you know, really, I want to know is, are we going to be adding the OCLC in-state and out-of-state returnables to that? And then using that total number really is the number of items requested? I mean, and yeah, I just.
I would say the report in web reports, column D has suggestions about what data to use. Some of them do mention like, here's the ILS data, please combine with OCLC data.
Right.
So whenever it mentions that, I would definitely include the OCLC stats.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. Okay. And then real quick, just on that 2.3 number of items requested by your library, that one is such a hard one to determine because there's questions of like maybe a request was made, but then it was canceled. Things, I guess things that kind of like happen after that request is made, but then it never like kind of gets to fruition. And that's when sometimes like the ILS data, like the quantitative data can't quite fill that. But let me go over what I have, and I'm hoping that some, here we go. Okay, I'm hoping I can answer some questions. So one of the question is from the agenda was like, where does the data from CCS ILLInet report come from? We pull what numbers we can from the ILS. Like I said before, like one of the big things about ILLInet is just kind of understanding like what ILLInet is asking for. And this is especially where like ILLInet really differs from other web reports. So for example, some questions on the ILLInet report ask for like number of requests made, or like how many of those were like in state, how many of those are out of state. Whenever it asks for the number of requests made or supplied, they're not just asking for checkouts. So again, like they're asking for, you know, how many items did you like send away? How many items arrived at your location? Because of what these questions are asking for relevant questions on the ILLInet, we use the number of items that became ready for pickup as like our metric. So this allows us to at least be able to count holds that were received by your library but never checked out. I hope that makes sense. We did check in with the state library and they confirmed that they wanted like number of requests and not necessarily checkouts, based on how the ILS records data. That was the closest that we could achieve. Because of what these questions are asking, for relevant questions on the ILLInet, you know, like I said, we use what we can from the ILS. Sometimes it's not like the full, sometimes it doesn't answer the full question of what ILLInet is looking for. So in column D, or the notes column in the report, this report will tell you what the number represented is counting. And it will also tell you when you will need to also incorporate in OCLC data to fully answer that question. So you can see here, there are some questions that the ILS data can partially answer, can fully answer, or can't answer at all. Like for question 2.5, for that, you will just need to rely on OCLC data. This differs from many of the other ILL-focused web reports, which provide checkout or circulation statistics. So one report, like specifically, I think mentioned in the questions, was about the monthly ILL report and how these two differ. So the monthly ILL report is counting circulation. So items that were checked out or items that were renewed. Whereas the ILLInet report is looking at the number of things sent or received from the library. So it seems like it's asking the same kind of questions, but they are slightly different metrics. Stop me at any time if you have questions or if this is not clear, because I totally understand that. So kind of along those same lines, like if the item is sent, but it's never checked out, because it was sent to the library, if it became ready for pickup, it's counted in the LNI report. Since it wasn't checked out, it's not counted in the monthly IL report. Again, it's that like sent received versus circulation. And then there's another set of questions here about the reciprocal borrower stats on the Rails Circulation Manager blog. So, and this is again, like a huge thank you to Dustin for helping answer all my questions on this. So the Circulation Manager's blog compiles reciprocal borrowing stats of the former NSLS group members. The data does come from, we are able to provide data from RILS that shows reciprocal borrowing activity between group members. So CCS will provide a report to the data coordinator, and they will compile it and post it on the blog. And an important point here, because this also differs from like the ILL focused web stats, is that the Circulation Manager's blog is specifically reporting reciprocal activity between group members. So it's between like a very controlled group of libraries. And this differs from the CCS web reports because our web reports report on all reciprocal activity. So for example, my home library card is from Woodridge. So if I use my Woodridge card at like Algonquin, say, my checkouts are counted on the CCS ILL reports, but they're not included in the Circulation Manager's report because Woodridge is not a group member there. It's outside of the former NSLS libraries. That was my I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. That was my crash course I received in the differences between the reports. And I know it only scratches the surface. So do let me know what pending questions there are, and I will seek out the answers.
I think that really does answer mine. I was really kind of wondering about, now that you've explained about the ILL report that we get monthly, and, and I was just like, why don't those statistics match? It's like, what am I looking at wrong? So, I mean, at least that explains it. It's all the requests rather than the actual checkouts. And also too, I guess I understand about the Rails the blog with those RBP statistics.
Can I ask a question on the blog one, those RBP statistics? Are those stored at Rails somewhere on their Rails site? Or is that just shared through the blog? And is that just we just want to be curious? I mean, we don't need those. I mean, I can't think of why I would need those, that blog, the RBPs from the blog.
Yeah, I don't think it's stored in Rails. I think it really is just kind of a grassroots thing where let's collect and compare as an internal project.
Seems like a lot of work for just not for anything, because we don't use it for anything. Because I know I don't use it for anything, and I don't really compare what our neighboring libraries are doing. I don't know, like Fox Lake, because that's what I'm thinking. The ones that are not in our consortium, I don't look at their stats for any reason. So I just didn't know if anybody else who maybe have been here longer, knows what the purpose is of that blog RBPs, and if they're different from what we have, how accurate can that be? That's my question. I don't know. Does anybody know? You'd think we'd let the person who handles it, take a break. That's just me. That's just me. I mean, I've been here 20 years and I have yet to really look at that blog thing or really say, wow, this has helped me. I'm just saying, I don't know if anybody else has used it and it is helpful. But I'll be quiet now.
No, it's an interesting question. Like I know my focus is on the CCS report, so I have no reason to go in there and look at them. But I know I hear people talk about them fairly regularly. So I am interested to hear input from others if they reference those numbers. I wonder if some of the non-CCS libraries in the group, if they're the ones who get kind of the most benefit from those numbers. It's a good question, Maggie. It's a good question.
Okay, are there any other comments? No. Well, thank you, Mieko, for the explanation, and thank you for Karen for bringing this up. We still can continue to look into that. The next piece is we're going to be doing the 2021 OCLC annual report summary. And that summary can be found online if you want to read the lengthy version of it. It's, I forget how many pages, lots and lots of pages. And it starts out, dear colleagues, libraries have been an incredible engine of opportunity this past year, rising above all the turbulence to deliver information digitally, support online learning, and provide communities with other resources they need. You, and they're talking about us directly, have played a role that no one else could by increasing access to technology and being among the first community services to safely open. And that is really something that all of us had to work on this past year. The report celebrates how libraries and OCLC rose beyond challenges and circumstances to serve our communities in new ways and with a renewed sense of purpose. One of the things they had to be concerned about, which all libraries are, was budget concerns. What they did, OCLC froze hiring. They had no salary increases. They had no price increases, but they didn't make any big cuts. They continued to provide critical services and continued investing in new services for the future. And I will be going over some of them. Never had they done so much for libraries in the midst of the most challenging circumstances that we have faced. One of the things they did was more than 500 million records, 3.0 billion library holdings. Nearly 700 libraries are members. They are thrown across 23 different countries. They had 200 new enhancements, and those enhancements to WorldShare management services were 70% supported by information from libraries like yours. They increased library impact. They made strong progress in building an infrastructure which enabled libraries to use OCLC and their stakeholders to jointly collect with linked data. They added Kapira, a software and mobile app, which helped libraries provide users with access to collections and schedule curbside pickups. This happens to be the most popular app that's out there now. There were many challenges. The new library model, and as you can tell, each one of our libraries has changed over this past year, and we're no longer the library that we were before the pandemic. They enhanced libraryship in, excuse me, I'm gonna be tongue-tied over this one. They enhanced libraries by supporting the reopening of libraries with science-based information. They had 8 different studies that they did, and they used the studies to support how we were going to open our libraries by testing materials that were within libraries and library archives. Those scientific studies were shared with other libraries so that we could open safely. They explored new research. There were 5 different reports that were started in 2021. They looked at the future of metadata. They linked data together. And this was research which was a culmination of 6 years of ongoing discussions. They were awarded the Laura Bush 21st Century Librarian Grant, and this helps support more connections such as Web Junction, which I've told you about before. Web Junction provides professional social network for library staff to sharpen their professional skills and to learn from each other. This is a free online classwork. Some of the classes are self-paced. There are 50 self-paced different classes, and there are 360 different webinar recordings. If you haven't had a chance to go to Web Junction, and I suggest that you try it, they have lots and lots of information. One lecture that I recently listened to was about COVID burnout. I can't remember if this was directly through ALA or if it was through Web Junction, but it was very informative. And I came away with a very special word, and it was called compassion burnout. Compassion burnout was a word that I had a feel for a word, but I didn't know how to describe that feeling. And what it means is when you are up against a situation that keeps repeating itself and repeating itself, at the first time you might say, you need to put your mask on while you're in the library. You might be very compassionate. By the time you say it for the 50th time in that day, you might not have such compassion as you did that first time at the beginning of your day. And that's called compassion burnout. So it's just these little nuances that you learn when you're listening to these web recordings. Also, they started Express Digital Delivery System. And in 2021, there were 160,000 copies sent out through the Express Digital Delivery Program. And those were sent out in less than 10.4 hours on an average. So that's a lot of copied material that was sent out through OCLC. Also, they started the OCLC Interlibrary Loan Cost Calculator, which is a free online tool which can process in real time what the cost of your ILL business is. There were so many things that they accomplished, but as we can see, never so much has been accomplished by libraries in the midst of this challenging circumstance. I'd like to thank you for everything that we've done to participate in this. And the way in which we have been participating is we've been their users. I suggest you go out and try the Kapira Technology app. The company was purchased in 2020 by OCLC, and it's called Kapira Mobile and Kapira Curbside, and it enables contactless, easy curbside delivery for library staff and customers, and it's a critical service for many libraries as they continue with their services in the COVID-19 environment. So these are all wonderful things that they accomplished, and they accomplished it for us, for all the OCLC members. So I'm going to pass it on to Jackie now. She's going to discuss long overdue items from OCLC libraries. Jackie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It says Lynn, but this is Jackie. I just was curious. I'm talking about those libraries, and we all see them. Their libraries are not that far from us, like Skokie, and we check out. They're asking for items from us, which we of course lend, and we go to check it out, and we get that pop up like they owe, $200 because they've gotten billed for a lot of they were lost items, and then they were billed for them from other libraries. I'm just totally curious. Of course, we still lend because they send to us, but at some point, what do you do with those items? Do you contact somebody at that library? And I'm only asking because, like, sometimes out of state libraries, if they get stuff starts getting overdue in OCLC, I keep track of that, or I keep an eye on that. And I'll reach out to that library, excuse me, say, I'll email them, hey, this is overdue. Can I mail you an invoice? And usually it gets resolved, but I don't do that with Illinois libraries. They're just kind of sitting there, and I was just curious what other libraries do about that. So we see it in LEAP, and then on the other side, I'm in OCLC, and I have this, I'll see over on my OCLC, I only have one overdue, and it's sitting there, and it just bugs the heck out of me. But so what do other libraries do about that? Anything? Nothing?
Here, Alicia handles a lot of that, so she's gonna talk right now.
So what we'll do is we'll recall it first, and if they don't respond to the recall in OCLC, then I'll just send them an email. Usually I'll just say something like, hey, we're wondering about the status of this item. Would you like us to send you an invoice for it if it's lost or damaged? Most of the time they'll reply to that. And if they don't, then we just follow up with a mailed invoice. And usually it resolves pretty quick though. Most libraries are nice about it.
Also, I want to add to that, sometimes if there's a library that hasn't returned our items, we will not continue to loan to them. I've told the team, if they have not contacted us, not paid, and it's still sitting there and they owe us 2 items, especially if they're video games, something, I say, no, don't lend yet right now. Let's see if we can get this resolved. And I know some of the libraries owe a lot of other libraries items, but we kind of just focus on what they owe us before we decide whether to lend to them or not.
There's a chat that came in. I just want to read. Indian Trails, they will call and email as well. They have blocked some libraries, mostly out of state. And it
So
sounds like-
the,
Sorry, one more chat
Yeah.
came through. Sounds like Fremont and Cary also stop lending eventually as well.
so you'll stop lending even to Illinois libraries like a Skokie or somebody?
Yes, I will stop lending until the material is fixed and resolved.
Yeah, before contacting any of the libraries, I make sure to see if they put it in returned on their end. So if they said they returned it through OCLC, then we just assume it was probably lost somewhere between here and there, and then we take it off their account. And that seems to happen a lot, you know, during the course of like the year. I've probably checked out to missing like maybe 6 or 8 items over the last year because they've already said they returned it. And at that point, we just kind of, you know, let it go. Are we being too kind? I don't know.
No, I agree with you, Tony. That's kind of what we do too,
Yeah,
because if they return,
okay.
especially with the mail being the way it is.
Right, exactly.
I have faith and trust that they did return it, and
Right.
just like are in transit with all of us in the
Mhm.
consortium, I have faith and trust that yes, somehow it just is out there in
Right,
the library, in the
exactly.
cyber world.
Right, exactly, right.
That's not always the case. I recently had a situation where that was, I noticed that it said return, it was long, long overdue. And I contacted the library to ask them to look at the tracking. And they said, oh, we hit return by accident.
Ah,
And then at that
Mm.
point, they returned it.
oh,
I mean, I think if you do it in a nice way, it's okay to check with them. Also, recently, we had 2 separate long overdues from Skokie, and I mean really long overdues. And I just emailed, and they were really happy to pay for those and resolve them really promptly.
Thanks for that. I've been hesitant to email because I thought they must see, they get email, they've gotten email notices from us and they must see it on OCLC that it's overdue, but okay,
Mhm.
I will email them.
The one thing we also do when we're sending material and back and forth through the mail, we put tracking labels on everything. So we know that it got there and everything, or was received. So we just Anything that we put through the mail, it has a tracking label on it. Which are free, by the way. The post office does that for free. And I know because we do passports and we have to have tracking labels on passports too. It's free. Only get 4 packs though each time you ask for it. It's limited. I don't know why.
I have a few chats I want to catch up on. It sounds like both Algonquin and Des Plaines will also like follow up with the library. Indian Trails says they have charged for lost mail, and then they've also been charged and paid for material lost in the mail. And then a question on should we put a message in the notes of the library's accounts? We don't have anything like any formal process for this since it's up to the lending library to invoice. Does anyone use notes fields to pop in communication about like pending payments or invoices or anything like that?
No, I don't.
Got another note coming through the chat. A couple more coming through.
We do put notes though in the OCLC records that on our side, you know, like Alicia will put down invoice the library for this or whatever. So that's, but not in the CCS side.
My understanding is with those notes that you put in the OCLC record, only your library can see that, not even the other library that's involved with lending or borrowing could see your notes.
Hey, Mieko, I was just based upon someone mentioning Skokie, just looking at their account. I'm wondering also how much we're human, we make errors. How much wasn't actually removed from the account that was actually paid for? Like if a staff member forgets to clean up the account, that it could, there's charges from 2018, 19, and 20 on there. I'm just wondering if possibly that library forgot to clean up the account, you know, after they took a check from the from Skokie in that case, and they actually don't owe that much money. I know it happens that multiple people are playing around with something and just take a check upstairs. Just another food for thought that perhaps some of those accounts can get cleaned up so we could actually see what they look like.
It's a good reminder for everyone to, like, as you're working with invoices and payments, to definitely check the library's account in LEAP in Polaris. And that's a good point. Chat came in that maybe the libraries did not invoice Skokie for those payments. In which case, once the charges reach 7 years, just like all the other fees, they'll be purged from the database. It's a long time to wait. It's a long time to wait, though.
Thanks, everybody. Seems like that's about it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for bringing that point up. Well, I think we're at the conclusion of another meeting. Our next meeting is going to be May 26th of 2022. And if there is no further business, do I have someone to motion that we can adjourn?
I just have a few notes, if you don't mind, before we adjourn.
Sure.
Just a reminder for everyone, next meeting is going to be our last meeting of this fiscal year. which also means that it's time for officer elections again. So think if you are interested in stepping into either the vice chair, chair-elect role, or secretary role, because those will be our two positions come and due.
Thank you. Oh, that went fast. Uh, Well, I have to say, the past 2 weeks, we watched a lot of the Olympic trials. They were, during that time period, we saw records being broken, records being rewritten, and heroes being born. And it reminds me of about 2 years ago. This is a side note, a bit of encouragement for you as we go off into our week. About 2 years ago, there was a high school athlete who broke a record on a Monday. Then on that same Wednesday, they weren't even able to jump over a very low bar. And when that happened, the people in the stands could see that the person was actually pretty upset, not angry, not sad, but definitely disappointed. So in our lives, there are probably a lot more Wednesdays when those things happen than Mondays when we meet all of the challenges that we have throughout the week. So remember those Mondays and have those carry you through the rest of the week, and share those Wednesdays with everyone, because we all have Wednesdays. Do I have someone who will motion to adjourn our meeting for today?
I will, Jeannie, after I wipe the tears from my eyes. My goodness,
Yeah.
that was beautiful. Yes. that
Oh,
was
thank you.
beautiful. I move that we close the meeting.
Thank you, Tony. Do we have a second?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jackie. We are adjourning today's meeting at 10:18. Thank you.
Could we
and
see
you-
Kim's background one more time though?
Yeah, we
Kim, are you
like
there?
that,
Could we see her
Kim.
back?